regular meeting of council to order at 3 p.m. for July 8th. Ask for a motion from Councillor Kinghorn that council adopt the agenda for the regular council meeting July 8th as presented.
Thank you, Mayor Snodgrass. I'll give you that motion.
All in favor? Carried. Consent agenda. Ask for a motion from Councillor Walsh that omnibus motion adopts the following in accordance with council's procedure bylaw: the June 24th regular council meeting minutes as presented and the strategic priorities chart.
I'll give you that motion, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you. All in favor? Carried. Any public comments before we get started? See none. One delegation from Wes is here talking about the Sunset Drive-In and the security that was requested. All yours, Wes.
Is the mic on? Oh, yeah. Good afternoon, council. Thanks for letting me come. Roger, my partner, went on holidays, luckily, so I'm here by myself. We've applied, of course, for the renewal of the lease for the Sunset Drive-In, and we were going to install some more RV plug-ins to help us offset some of our expenses to operate the drive-in. And during the procedure to get the lease signed up, because the project is going to cost about $38,000, the town has requested a $9,500 damage deposit or abandonment fee. And Roger and I are a little confused about why they want more money for this. We are not doing either, damaging or abandoning the drive-in. And I'm not sure if council understands how we work the drive-in. We charge $40 a car per show. Half of that proceeds, the $20 comes to the drive-in. The other half goes to the charity that comes to the drive-in. So that money that we make out of that, we pay for the copyrights for the movies. Now, the movies cost us anywhere between $750 and $1,000 per night for the copyrights. That comes out of our $20. The rest of the $20 go to the charity. So this $9,500 is a big deal to us because that's 10 movies. That's 10 charities that aren't going to get money. So we're just asking council if we can do something different and still have our plugins. The plugins are important. We can sell out all those plugins easily. The town is so short of camping facilities. We have a lot of parties interested in renting the drive-in, and this is something that can be done all summer because in the summertime it's too light to run movies, so we still have power expenses and maintenance expenses. So everything that we can do to keep that facility going is our goal for sure, to offset some of the costs to the charities.
Thanks, Wes. Councillor Kinghorn.
Thank you. So a couple of questions. The $9,500, I thought that was a percentage of what the operational or what the costs of to recover if they abandon the project. It seems high compared to what the overall project costs are. But that's a separate issue, I think, from the drive-in. I think you can carry on the drive-in completely without putting the power in. Is that not correct?
As it is right now, yes, we can operate that, but
So this is primarily for the campground then, is what you're looking
for the campground, and we're trying to promote more on movie nights that people can come down. We'll give them a whole weekend. They can bring the whole family and camp overnight and spend a whole weekend there, visit High River during the day, come back at night. Power is not important to everybody, but it's something that seems to draw them in if we have a full facility for them.
Okay, because I was going to say, I'm, as you know, becoming one of those RVers, and I don't necessarily need power anywhere. We have our own power, so could you run it for a year without power and see how it goes, and then go from there? I mean, this is in addition to the original agreement that we put in place with Sunset Drive-In. It was going to be a drive-in, and it seems to be growing and adding more stuff all the time.
Yeah, and that's a concern of Rogers and I. First of all, the power issue. If you have 15 or 16 campers out there and they all start to generate at the same time, we're going to run into trouble with fumes and noise, and yeah, it's just not a good thing if we can get away from it. When we had the food trucks out there, for instance, they were noisy and gassy, and they were only there for a short time. So, you know, believe it or not, there's a lot of elderly people that are on CPAP. My brother come out, wanted to stay, but we couldn't let him stay because he didn't have enough power to run his CPAP all night. It's things like that that discourage people from coming. So the power to us is not a big expense, but it's a real asset to the future of the drive-in, I believe.
So the $9,500 was 25% of the estimated install of 38,000, right?
That's correct.
Which was a big reduction from what we normally take as a security, but personally, I've never understood if it's only 25%, we have a community group that's using their own funds to put this in. You're not asking for any town funds for the capital install of this or anything. Yes, it's on a piece of our land that you guys have a lease on, but you know, if the drive-in was ever not to be, and you walked away from it, and the town was left, that's what the town would be left with, would be a drive-in. It'd be up to the town whether they wanted to continue to run it or just tear it all out. But I don't see it ever being this electrical coming out until Spitzy Crossing development is coming in. And then at that time, that'll be part of the developer's cost if we use that piece of land for that. So I don't think the security deposit is necessary. We've got a good working relationship with Wes and Roger and the Sunset Drive-In, and you know, we all know what business these guys are in, and I know it's not going to be done half-assed. It's going to be done properly. It's going to be installed properly. And I'm not worried about these guys abandoning it just without discussion. So I'm in favor of waiving the $9,500 fee. I don't see the necessity of it for this. Councillor Smith.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I too see the benefit of what you're trying to do, and I am in favor of what the mayor has just said as well. That I think that if you were to ever choose to divest of this venture, you would probably come and have a conversation with us first. So if that's the case, unless there's other comments, can we make a motion?
Yeah, just got Councillor Jones and Councillor Nychuk,
Okay.
and then we can. Councillor Jones?
Thanks, Mayor Snodgrass. I find it tough to assume that somebody's going to do something because we all know that not everybody does what they're supposed to do or what we think is right. The deposit does protect us a little. I know it doesn't cover what it would cost to put that property back to its original state, I guess, and to, you know, we don't know what it's going to be left like, and at what time either. I think it's important to have some kind of security to say that it's going to be done after the fact, that whatever we need the space to look like when you are done does get done and not at the taxpayer dollar. I mean, even if we were to do half, I would be okay with that, but having something as a deposit, I'm not saying that you wouldn't, but I can't assume that you were going to.
Councillor Nychuk?
Just a question to administration. Thanks, Wes. Not a question to you. With the drive-in, actually, we didn't ask for this when the drive-in was put up, right? So, yeah, I guess I know I'm leaning towards what Mayor Snodgrass is saying, just because we didn't set that precedent before. It's town property. They're leasing it from us. They've built a facility. At that time, we weren't concerned about remediating it if they disappeared off the face of the planet. So I don't want to step it back to saying, oh, and we should have some financing, some funding put aside for the drive-in. So, I'll be voting in favor to put it to the side and let these guys proceed.
I'd just like to add something, if you don't mind. Roger and I's feeling about this whole thing is that we're bringing a lot of people into this town. And as far as a deposit, every time somebody stays overnight in this town, they go to the local grocery store, they go to the restaurants. They maybe not deposit, this deposit may not go directly to the town council or to the town, but it helps everybody else out. So I don't think you can say that we're not giving back something.
Councillor Walsh?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, and thank you, Wes, for what you're doing today and what you've done in the past. I support the rest of council in that as a charitable organization, it would be difficult to have another $10,000 sitting around. And my only question is, should you ever decide not to do this anymore, the benefit of the enhancements that you've done out there, they would just then become part of the town's things, and we would continue to operate. And with Councillor Nychuk, that I would have thought there'd be a bigger deposit on the screen than the nice tidy underground things, but I also am in favor of waiving this for your organization, and again, thank you for all that you're doing.
Thank you.
Okay, so I'll make a motion that council agrees to waive the $9,500 security request for the power installation at the Sunset Drive-In. Questions? All in favor? Opposed? One. Carried. Thanks, Wes.
Thank you, council, and we won't let you down. See you at the movies.
Keep your cans. He had $9,500 in cans that he was going to drop off. So. Okay, strategic priorities chart update. Chris?
Thanks, Mayor Snodgrass. On June 18th, we had our quarterly meeting for our strategic priorities update meeting. We made a little bit of progress, not as much as we did in the first quarter, but we are going to be making some progress, making some decisions later in this meeting about one of your top 5 strategic priorities. Your top 5 still remain the same. You know, the town plan is looking to be adopted in August. It's being referred off to CMRB and going through that process. And once it's back from them, then we'll be in a position to adopt it. The aquatic expansion is on the agenda today, and you'll make a decision one way or the other, yes or no. And that will be either remain on the agenda, remain and change, or come off the top 5. Town farm design and outdoor rink, 112th Street East Area structure plan, as well as the water strategy from that perspective remain your top 5. One of the next items that has come off the list after review was looking at community garden options. After review of that, the cost of establishing community gardens in those other sites being borne by the town was something that we didn't feel was necessarily acceptable. But those sites will be offered up for other groups that may wish to establish their own community gardens and fund those initiatives. Other than that, there's not a significant amount of change on the council's main priorities. But there are other changes within the organizational priorities too that are further in the divisional sections. Based upon that, that's the rationale for the recommendation you see before you.
Thanks, Chris. Questions from council? None. Ask for a motion from Councillor Smith that council adopt the updated top 5 strategic priorities as follows: the town plan, aquatic facility expansion, town farm design and outdoor rink, 112th Street area structure plan. Number 5 being the water strategy. The council adopt the updated strategic priorities chart and work program as presented, and the council adopt the updated work program as presented.
I'll give you that motion, Mr. Mayor.
Yep. All in favor? Carried. Riveting conversation, wasn't it, Bonnie? I'm glad you flew back for that one, hey? Aquatics expansion, future staffing costs, Riley. And Kaylee.
Good afternoon, Mayor and Council. The next 3 reports go together. So I'll start off on the briefing note. Kaylee will then do the capital, and then lastly, we have an operational consideration for Council. So the first report is a briefing note with regards to staffing. So in the report is the background information so that Council may be better informed for making decision on the construction award. Within that is 3 operational models for the facility and operating the pool. So the first model is essentially what we're doing now, which is we are staffing with mostly casual, except for one person, casual employees, which has had challenges with scheduling and coverage. And it does impact our service levels. The second model presented is for a core permanent staffing model. So still one basin, so our existing facility, but moving the core of our staff over to permanent staff. So this would help with coverage, help with an increased level of service. It would give us staff that are more bought in or engaged with what we're doing as employees. Situation or scenario 3 is the expanded facility, so going to the 2 basin count, and again continuing with the permanent staffing model as the core with some casuals to fill in as needed. And then below that we have the FTE equivalent. So an FTE is full-time equivalent. It doesn't mean one staff, it means 35 hours or 40 hours, depending on if it is a leadership position or not. And so in the table, you can see the totals. So we're currently at 6.2 FTE. 1 basin with moving over to a permanent model will be 9 FTE. 1 of that is made up with a new manager. And then some of to address the scheduling, you see a bit of a bump as well. And then lastly, for the 2 basins, we're up to 13.3. We run the math on that and give annual equivalents in the next table. And so that is total compensation. So basically, what is our cost for having an employee? That includes deductions, that includes benefits, pension, those kind of things. So we add all of that up, and that gives you your total annual cost for each model. And then we break it down into a per unit cost. So to get there, what we've done is taken the 2 basin model, so the $1 million, and subtracted the 750. We have assumed that we're moving to the 750 in any situation. And so we've only taken the difference between the 1 basin permanent model and the 2 basin permanent model. I'll just pause there in case there's questions. That's a lot of math to get there. We're okay? So using that, we go and use the number, essentially we divide by number of units in town. This is from our tax roll, so 6,310. which is comprised of residential and commercial units. That's the total number of units in town. And that gives us an average cost of $46 per unit per year. So that's the average increase to move from the permanent one basin to a permanent two basin model. It does not include the step between the casual to the one basin permanent. So this is, there's no resolution or decision to make, but this factors into the next report you will see in terms of total numbers and total impact on a per unit basis. And with that, I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Thanks, Riley. So this came to us, this new staffing model, basically a request by the community because we weren't able to provide the level of service that they were looking for, even in the current pool.
Correct. That's
Right?
the difference between the casual and the core
Yeah.
permanent.
So, and I get it, what future or previous council's decisions, whenever that this was made, but were staffing decisions that, it looks and sounds good to go with a casual model because you can make the numbers look cheap. It looks like you can save a whole bunch of money because you're not paying out benefits and all this other stuff. The problem with trying to operate any business on a casual model is good luck getting and keeping staff. And that's what's created this high turnover that, this council chambers was packed full of people, mad as hell as to what was going on and why is the turnover so big over there. You guys aren't doing it. Well, that's not it. It's just somebody gets a casual position, at some point in time they're going to find a full-time job. So it's just all there is to it. I run lots of casual positions at the funeral home just because I don't, for funeral services when I need extra people, but lots of times it's a nightmare to find somebody because they're off doing something else that day. So it's a brutal way to try to operate this facility with a level of service that we want. So regardless of the pool expansion, we absolutely have to move from this casual model to a full-time, part-time model. Like it's not even a discussion in my mind that we have to go here because of what we've heard back from the community and the user groups that were upset at all this. So makes sense to me. Councillor Kinghorn.
Thank you, Mayor Snodgrass. You've never called me, but I don't know if I'd accept that.
I can't have somebody
is this
in
not
a purple
part of the
shirt there. Purple just isn't going to cut it at a funeral, man.
Is this not part of the report as well? We hired a consultant to come and have an investigation and have a look at the pool and what was going on over there. It's not something that we've just come out of the wind with. This is recommended, my understanding, as part of that investigation.
Do you want to comment on that, Chris, please?
Yeah, I'll jump into that one. We engaged an individual to come here and take a look at not so much an investigation, but a restoration process to gather a pulse of what was causing the problems and what was causing the stress and the conflict over there. One of the issues that came forward was this casual nature from the individuals, that they didn't feel that they were valued, that they weren't valued as permanent employees, that they were just throwaway individuals and throwaway staff. And that really resonated with us from that perspective, that we have to make a fundamental change on how we operate that facility, expansion or no expansion. And so this model that you see before you is a result of that conversation that we've had with them and making sure that, one, we deliver a level of service, but at the same time we have consistency in level of service being provided to the customers. And we have capable individuals consistently that are providing life-saving services to people that frequent that facility. So that's where this all came from, and that's kind of the approach we've taken and kind of been starting to do some recruitment from that perspective. So I hope that answers your question.
Yeah, well, it wasn't really a question, it was a comment, and you've confirmed it, that it was part of that report. And I'll put in there as well, as this is an area where It's a fairly, I wouldn't call it unsafe area, but it's a high-risk area. We need to have people in there that are prepared and trained and ready to do the job if something should go wrong at that pool. And I know it has, and we've had some good staff in the past, but we really got to pay attention. Thanks.
You know, I'll add just one more comment. You know, through this whole process, it became clear too that I think we all underestimated the aquatic side of things and how complicated it actually is. Not only that, I think we also underestimated the fact of number of people that were actually involved. And when we came to the realization that this is likely our largest division individually, just aquatics by itself, the number of people that are involved in aquatics, that it needed more attention and needed a different model.
Councillor Smith?
Thank you, Mayor Snodgrass. I know we've done the comparable from one basin to two basins as far as the $46 per unit change. Did we do one from the current to the one basin model, knowing that we need to position to that? Sorry, Riley.
No, that's one number I didn't calculate.
Because we're going to go there anyway, right?
Correct. Rough numbers in my head would put, so add about a little over a third. So that would say $15. So put you around 60 total.
60 per unit?
Sorry, 60 plus the 46 would be the total jump from casual to two basin.
Right, okay.
So yeah, this would be 46, this would be 60. Just that one? So the first, sorry, I'll clarify. The first jump from casual to one basin permanent is about $60, give or take. Is Chris madly doing math there to confirm my numbers?
He's on Twitter.
And then the jump from one basin permanent to two basin permanent is about 46. So if you add it up, you're 110-ish
Okay.
for both, for where we are now to completed expansion. I guess the other point to note of that is that doesn't all hit at once. Construction will take us, at this point, we're into probably March of 26. That staffing will take a while to implement.
Right.
And not all of it will be needed until we're up and running with the new facility. So
Okay.
there is definitely a staggered implementation with that as well.
Thank you.
There's also one other piece to that is our user fees rates that should eat up most of that, because it's the users of the pool that are requesting this. And our user rates need to be looked at across the board in that whole facility, whether it be the field house usage or the large ice surface or the swimming pool. I think we got to take a big look at the cost recovery on our operations of that facility in its entirety. But it was all the users that were here that were upset at the current state of what that swimming pool was. So you want to go to a different model, no problem, but there's a cost attached to it as well. Councillor Jones?
Thank you, Mayor Snodgrass. I mean, I want to say thank you for the time and effort that went into finding a solution to this problem and to the situation that came before us. I mean, I agree that as we increase staffing and something that just, I guess, works better for the aquatic center, that user rates, and we have talked about that, you know, may change, and that's just sort of a given. But yeah, I think this is a great solution, and I appreciate the time and effort you've put into finding that solution, and rather quickly too.
Thank you, Councillor Jones. To add to that, it was a lot of people had input on this report. It wasn't just Kaylee and I. So, I mean, HR, so Sonia and Joanne spent a huge number of hours pulling the numbers together and explaining it to me. Michelle and David in finance on Kaylee's report next. We had Amelia and Marcy on the programming, as well as Michelle from the scheduling end as well. So there was a huge amount of people that really pulled it all together and helped put the numbers together and these reports together. So thank you.
Councillor Walsh.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. So just to clarify, when we look at the operational costs, originally we spoke of $46 per unit. Once we come to the first change being a permanent employee operation versus casual, yes? So,
Sorry, I think one of us is backwards.
okay.
Could you repeat that, please?
No, that's okay. The $46 per unit
Yes.
is in reference to the cost difference with one basin, with full-time people,
To two basin.
okay? And then the difference where we are now to two basin, which is the end goal in 2026, yes? Am I right?
I think
Yes.
my question, if I may,
Mm.
was the same, basically, I think asking the same thing. I wanted to know what it was to go from current to solution one,
Yes,
and then solution one to solution two.
yes, so,
1 to 2 is the $46 per unit.
yes.
Didn't factor in casual two.
Right. So I think what I'm looking for is clarification that by the time we are up and running with two pools, we're looking at a cost increase of $110 per unit.
Approximately, yes.
Thank you. That was what I wanted to clarify.
I was doing that math in my head though, so.
That's okay. I was just trying to get the whole picture that the first change we would see would take us up by $46, and then once we're fully operational, we'd go up to $110 per.
No, you guys.
That's, okay, that's what I'm
No.
not understanding.
So from where we're at today in a casual model to with one pool, with the lane pool.
Yes.
So if we change from casual to a full-time, part-time model, that's a $60 swing. Just that. Just today's pool going from casual to full-time, part-time, $60.
Okay.
54. We just did the real math.
Thank you.
$54.
$54.
Now, if you go if you add on another pool, it's an increase of $46. So the pool, the pool expansion increases it by $46.
But our employees' practices will see also a slight change.
Full change.
Thank
Yeah,
you.
going from casual to full-time,
And
part-time.
that's what I was trying to understand, the difference is right
Yeah.
across the board. And the larger number, we don't see that outcome until,
It's all built.
yeah. Thank you.
What larger
Well,
number?
I was just,
gotta
when I added them together,
Yeah.
and so I was looking at it as one versus in steps, which you've just defined.
Right.
Thank you.
Okay. So the step thing isn't really in play because staff is going to the full-time, part-time model, whether we
Yes.
approve the pool or not.
That's right. So,
Right.
and that's what I wanted to
Okay.
clarify, is we're gonna see a change in staffing right away, and then again, once we're operation and like fully functional.
Correct.
Thank you.
Councillor Nychuk.
Thank you. I think everybody's trying to understand the implications to the cost, to the resident, of going to two basins with the permanent staffing model. And if I'm adding things correctly, it's $100. Average, per average dwelling unit. So some people will see a little bit less and some people will see more. So because we're talking about the pool expansion, and the majority of council, as far as I know, are supportive of the expansion, the operational side of the business is gonna cost the resident taxpayer, on average, $100.
Correct.
Okay,
And if you don't build the pool, the expansion pool, it's going to cost $54.
54, yeah. Lovely.
which gives you an increase of $46 for the pool.
Thank you.
Okay, any other questions for Riley and Kaylee on this one? Is council supportive of this direction going from the casual to the full-time, part-time? This is an operational thing that, you know, I think everybody in administration knows that this is the solution to the current major issue we have with our aquatics facility. And, you know, it's not a council decision whether they do this or not. It's up to Chris and his team as to whether they implement this model. But I think it's important that council understands it, and does administration have council's support in this direction? I'm seeing nods, so yes. Okay, we can go through the aquatics expansion construction tender award. Kaylee.
All right, so I'm going to go through a quick brief history. There was a lot of numbers in that report, so I'm not going to go through all of them, but they are in your package, but I'll be more than happy to answer those questions. So roll back to 2021, a referendum was completed, which put us on the path of doing some investigation in this project. In 2022, we moved forward with a design, and it was adopted as a project as a top priority in the strategic priorities chart. And council had talked about moving forward with the borrow up to $15 million through the local authorities loan program to complete this project. In the design, it was identified that a level entry pool, leisure pool, hot tub, water slide change rooms, and improvement renovations should be considered. So come 2022, we've got an advisory design task force along with WSP, who is our project management consultant on the project, come together and met frequently to go over those detailed designs to make sure we were capturing multiple perspectives on putting together a community led kind of design on the project, make sure we were capturing everyone's needs and being fully inclusive. It led to multiple viewpoints, but it also led to a lot of great debates. Come 2023, we brought on Gibbs Gage to complete that that detailed design for submission to receive a building permit. This year in April, late April, we issued our tender to get actual costs on the construction, and it closed here at the end of May. We received 5 submissions: Westcore Construction, Shandos Construction, Wright, Clark Builders, and Lear Construction. After a thorough evaluation of all the bids that we received, the most advantageous tender that was submitted was felt that it was Shandos Construction at a total of $22,289,285, but that's broken out. The aquatics expansion itself is $15,979,035. The renovations that would now exist in the existing basin is broken to $3,906,551, and then the lobby renovations in Zamboni Room, which ultimately are impacted by the expansion, is at $2,403,699. Now, the tender construction value is not the only value that needs to be taken into consideration in order to complete this project and the project overall cost. We do have some discretionary expenses for construction. These items would be, owner-controlled insurance, construction management, project commissioning, geotech. So items that need to take place during the construction process that happen outside by third party. So our project construction total, which includes contingency, already committed costs, and any of these discretionary costs, is $26,793,922. That is giving us a 10% contingency. Do you want to get into the finance portion? The cost of $15 million borrow? There has been a lot of discussion, and you'll notice within the finance box there were a lot of options and a lot of information around how to proceed with financing. So I'm more than happy to open that up if there's any questions on that portion of the report. I don't know if you really want me to repeat every single number in that box. So The one thing I will break down for council is that with that $15 million borrow, how that breaks down. So if we look at a $14 million borrow, because that's roughly where we're sitting at when we take a look at the different funding models, that would put us at a capital cost of $194 per unit, and that includes the $46 per unit that was just discussed by Riley, along with the $148 per unit per year that would be associated to that borrow. Operating tax comes to $16.17 per monthly per unit, which is an increase of about 53 cents per day per unit. I am more than happy to answer any. I will do my best to answer any questions that council would like to bring forward at this time.
So at the end of the day, we are looking at a $14 million borrow is what we would be. The rest of it is funded through the windfall that we got on the flood property resale. We've got $1 million there. Then using MSI, provincial government grants, and the gas tax grants of 5.8 and MSI at 5.9. And then the aquatics reserve at 387,000. So, which brings that $26 million number down to a $14 million borrow, which would be the actual direct tax impact.
That is correct.
Correct? Okay. Any questions? Councillor Nychuk?
Thanks, Mayor Snodgrass. The 387,520 in aquatics reserve, does that drain the aquatics reserve? That empties out that reserve account?
That is correct.
Any other questions? Councillor Smith?
Thank you, Mayor Snodgrass. A couple. So the contingency, 10%, that's typical for a
That-
project like this?
That is correct. We are dealing with a renovation of a building, so we will have some unknown circumstances.
Okay. Further to that, then, the existing pool lobby and Zamboni, our area, are all needing an upgrade at this point, regardless of an expansion.
Yeah, so my understanding with the Zamboni room is that is an operational need for safety for staff operating through that Zamboni access. The renovation of the lobby is a requirement. And then even with the existing pool, if we were not to move forward, the pool mechanical system and the hot tub work alone itself is in around that $800,000 mark. So there's quite substantial amount of renovations that would be required regardless of of this expansion.
Okay, thank you.
Councillor Jones?
Thanks, Mayor Snodgrass. And thank you guys for all your hard work on this. I know this is a large project with big numbers, and we've had many discussions over the years and even this afternoon about the benefits to our town. I guess I've been lucky. I've been involved on the task force and in the some of the decision makings on how this goes forward. It's taken me a little while to get here, but I do definitely see the benefits of this project going forward for our town now and into the future. I know Councillor Kinghorn talked about, sustainable growth and what we kind of want our town to look like, and what we offer this town, the facilities in our town. We've discussed both pros and cons, and I know the numbers are huge, but you've really done a great job of crunching those numbers and making them transparent and understandable, and what that cost looks like to each, say, unit in our town on average. It is a really big decision to make, but there's lots of value, I believe, in this project. So thank you so much.
So with any of these projects like this, and we've been through a number of them since 2013 where it's big numbers involved, you have to, spreadsheets are great, but they're only part of it. That the investment that this facility gives us into this town, and we're only a town of 15,000 people. Like those, if you're out there thinking that, you know, we're going to somehow build a whole brand new rec center, wherever it might be, standalone thing, you know, it's always talked about out in the Spitzy Crossing out in the northwest. It ain't happening. We're only 15,000 people right now, and that is at a bare minimum 20 to 30, more like 30 to 40 years down the road. A facility to replace what we currently have, to rebuild that in a standalone place, you are looking at a bare minimum of $150 million. Like you're talking numbers that aren't even comprehensible to a town of our size. And I always look at this thing as, and when we do these projects, is what does High River need right now? Not what do we want, and not this, if you build it, they will come load of crap that just gets you locked up into dreamer status, and you end up doing nothing, and that's what's happened. I sat on a group when in 2001, where a new facility was being looked at, and the numbers even for that group back then, it was, you know, we were another 5,000 people shy of where we're at today. It never went anywhere. Council wasn't in on it, and neither was the group when we started to crunch these numbers. So what did we do? We did absolutely nothing for 20 years now. So council has a decision today to move this facility forward, move our community forward, or say no and do nothing and stay where we're at today, which gets us nowhere. We have a need in this town for an enhanced aquatics facility. When that thing was first built in 1979, it was unbelievable that we had that. Why? Because we were in a pool ducking lightning outside where the culture center is. So we were all happier than heck to be able to come inside and be able to swim 365 days a year if you wanted to. Couldn't do that before. So it was a huge move back then. We're doing the same thing today where aquatics facilities are, you know, they're a lot more enhanced facility than what we required in 1979. Now you want the water slides. I cannot take my kid to a pool if it does not have a water slide. They'll lose their minds if I just show up and it's an open basin. We go to the Super 8 sometimes just to get the water slide. But more so, we're going to, especially when the kids were really young, we're going using Okotoks. That's where Lindsay took the kids, was to Okotoks or to a Calgary pool. We're just not there with our aquatics facility in High River right now. So it is an absolute need. This thing's been sitting on our top 5 strategic priorities, and it's the responsible thing to move this thing forward. This is absolutely not a reckless decision. We have been through this thing 9 ways to Sunday for, 6 years now? Looking at this thing before you showed up. So how long you been here? 42 years? Feels like 5 years. So at least 6 years we've been talking about this with the previous council as well. But it's not a reckless decision. The finances have been put in order. We know how we're doing this. Yes, there's a big renovation that needs to be done outside of the $15 million borrow that we had the referendum on. And you can always find a way easily not to do things. But the one voice that we have never been able to hear from on this project is the kids in this town. Because they have virtually no voice in it. They can't vote. They don't come to council and tell everybody we want a water slide. But they exist. And there's young families in this town, young families that want to come to High River, and these are the types of amenities that they're looking for. This is a huge investment into the future of High River, and it's a great one, and it's one that's highly required. When we go back and look at that field house, Councillor Kinghorn, back when was that, 2010-ish, 09, 10, 11? We didn't have a field house. Now think back to if that field house did not exist today. That council voted that in. They had a choice as to whether to put it in High River or to partner up with Foothills County and Okotoks and do it in Alderside. They absolutely made 100% the right decision to keep that facility in High River. And when you look at the success of that facility, and that was an $8.8 million borrow? Contingency. Call it $8 million borrow. But think of what that facility has brought to this town with the amount of lacrosse and basketball, badminton, pickleball. Like it's huge. I can't even fathom that thing not existing on that facility now. And that's a bold move that it takes strong council to make that. And that was a split vote. It only passed 4-3, but it was absolutely the right thing to do. And these rec facilities being in our communities where most people have direct access to it, they don't need a car to get to it, is 100% responsible. And like I said, it's not reckless. We looked at taking another piece of town-owned property that's serviced and everything and dropping a standalone new pool on it. It's at a bare minimum double this cost. Bare minimum. To put a whole new building together. Then your operational costs will go through the roof because you have a completely separate facility that there are no efficiencies for operational costs. Now, yes, there's a tax increase to it, but there's a tax increase whenever you do anything in this environment. We absolutely have to look at our operational expenses and our user fees. We also have to look at, especially with the aquatics facility, that outside users outside of High River can absolutely pay a higher fee to access the facility. My family does it when we use the Seton facility in Calgary. You have to show your driver's license and they look at your postal code and they charge you more because we're coming from High River. High River didn't put 10 cents of capital costs into that facility, so we're going to pay for it on the user end. I think we absolutely have to do that unless Foothills County wants to come to the table with some money for capital expenses, but that's not going to happen. They want rec facilities to exist in a stubble field in the Foothills County. I get what they want, that's fine, but we're not doing that. And I think it's great that the town of High River and our residents, we're going to do this ourselves. And we're not going to burden anybody with excessive tax increases or anything. This is, about a $17 per month tax increase to have this new facility, including operations. So, shocker, but I'm all in. Councillor Kinghorn.
Thanks, Mayor Snodgrass. Yeah, you kind of took away 90% of my thunder there. But I'll, with all due respect, your first comment about if you build it, they will come is not true. It is true. We've seen it at the field house. When we built the field house, people came. People moved to this town partly because of the field house. They came out here and played lacrosse in it and saw what it was about and saw what our community was about, and they came here. And I think that part of what we're talking about doing today is more oriented on our existing people. One of the problems we have in High River is people leave to go to this facility. They'll go to Okotoks, you talked about it. They'll go to Calgary. They'll go to different places to participate in something that we could have here, right here in High River. going to say again, the field house, when we brought that to council in 2010, or administration, we had heard a lot of the same arguments about the costs and, you know, will it get used and all these other things. Oh, it was built on a slough, and I can't remember all of the arguments. Riley, you were here. We went through a ton of them. The floor wasn't going to be good enough and blah, blah, blah. And yet today, when I drive by there or pull in there and see the parking lot full, and I see seniors playing pickleball, I see young people playing basketball, kids are using the walking track. There's so much going on in that facility. To me, it was a no-brainer, and it was the right decision. With this particular build, I'm on the same place with this one. This is one we're looking 25 years down the road. Where are we going to be? Where's High River going to be? Are we going to have a facility like this, or are we going to sit back and do nothing and have to look at building something that's going to be $150 million down the road? This is the right time to build it. We have the financing in place. Interest rates are kind of suck right now, but hey, that's what it is. I think this is the right time to do it. Thanks.
Any further comments? Okay, I'm gonna, Councillor Smith.
Thank you, Mayor. I too, I think I concur. We're probably the best position we could be to do this with especially investing the money that came out of the misfortune of the flood with the houses, and being able to keep it within the scope of what we hoped for in terms of the borrowing. It's never going to get any more affordable to do than it is today, unless the interest rates go down, which they may do, and unless we find a nice grant somewhere. But I think, too, when we look at the costs that leave our community when people need to go elsewhere versus attracting people to our community, they're not just going to come for a swim. They might go have an ice cream at the Dairy Queen on their way out again, right? Or they may come for swim meets. It does give a boost to some tourism to have staycays with people in the surrounding communities. So that is my hope with something like this, that we can think back to 1979 when the pool was first built. Everybody was really excited to have a new facility. We're hoping to provide that, I think, to people who live here today, as well as the people who will come here, as well as the people who will choose to live here going forward. Thank you.
Okay. Councillor Nychuk.
Thanks. I appreciate the positive and supportive, and I'm not doing this to negate all that. It's a big ask. It's a big spend. We're making a big decision. There's going to be more things that are kind of come down the pipe, guys, and we're going to go to the community for more money. That's the reality. We've got a population number that we're going to surpass in the not too distant future, which is going to bring in a tax increase because we're going to have to pay for policing. Yes, Chris? So there are things coming down the pipe. And I'm not saying that to put a stop on this. I'm saying that so the community is aware, we're aware. This is a big, massive decision. I think it's a good thing for the community. I really do. But there's going to be more things that are going to be hard to deal with as we go on. And I think you guys have been here for, well, we go into election next year. So your feet are no longer wet. You're deep in the pool now. So there's more stuff to come, but I appreciate the conversation we have and what everybody's put forward here and the position everybody has. So I'm always stuck on the money, right? It's a big spend, it's a big ask. We're going to our community to support this, so I'm glad we all have the positive outlook towards what this will do, what it can bring. Yeah, I wasn't trying to put a damper, just there's more that will come down the pipe that we're going to have to deal with as there always is, and Craig will be the first guy to say that, you know, there's more hard decisions to come, so and that will be there, so away we go.
Thanks, Councillor. Anyone else? I'm going to read the motion in its entirety, every word, number, because people that are watching this on YouTube may or may not have the full agenda in front of them when they're watching this. So I'll ask for a motion from Councillor Barton that council award the contract to construct the aquatics facility expansion to Chandos Construction LP in the amount of $22,289,285, excluding GST and contingency, as outlined below. The new leisure pool, water slide, teaching pool, mechanical systems at $15.979035 million. Existing lap pool renovations at $3,906,551 million. Lobby and Zamboni area improvements at $2,403,699. And that council amend the 2024 capital budget to reflect the proposed aquatics facility expansion award amount plus costs for 10% contingency and the discretionary work totaling $26,793,922. And further, that council approve the use of $13,187,294 of the following funding to support the project construction as follows. The Southern Alberta Flood Relocation property sale proceeds that we have in excess of $1 million. Our MSI provincial grant funding of $5,909,887. Our LGFF funding for 2024 to 2026. Another provincial grant funding of $5,889,887, and our aquatics reserve account of $387,520, and that council authorized the mayor and CAO to execute the contract with Chandos Construction LP, and that council direct administration to return with a borrowing bylaw not to exceed $14 million at its earliest convenience. Councillor Barton.
You have my motion, Mayor.
Thank you. And before we take the vote, just so that the public is clear, we are not looking at a full $15 million borrow. We are looking at approximately a $14 million borrow is where we're currently at.
That is correct.
Thank you. Motion on the floor. All in favor? Opposed? Carried. Riley, free monthly extension of recreation passes due to aquatics construction.
Thank you. So the aquatics construction will have impact on our users. So what is being proposed is that anytime we're expecting a closure of 1 week or longer, we will compensate all pass holders with a free month. We're expecting some of our timelines might not be exact when we get into the closures, so there might be a day or two, give or take. And so instead of trying to prorate passes, or we do currently allow a medical exemption or trying to let people use that or suspend passes, we would proactively give a month free. The cost of that is approximately $3,800 every time we give up for a month. So we're anticipating 2 closures exceeding a week. So that would be a total of $7,600. In terms of lost revenue, this is in the rate bylaw, so council does need to approve it. For shorter durations or shorter inconveniences or noise impacts or anything like that, we will probably be handing out day passes as needed. So with that, I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Thanks, Riley. Councillor Kinghorn.
Thank you, Mayor Snodgrass. I was just going to back up to the first item that we talked about operationally for the pool. Does administration need a decision on that now that we've made a decision on the aquatics expansion, or was...
Go ahead.
Mayor Snodgrass, through to Councillor King, that's an operational decision. We were briefing council on what the model shift was going for the single basin to restore the workplace. And so we're proceeding in that manner already.
Thank you.
Do we need to wait for Jenny to come back? Don't know how long she's gonna be. No further questions. I'll ask for a motion from Councillor Nychuk that council direct administration to extend all passes that are active on the first day of a pool closure that is a minimum of 1 week in duration for a period of 1 month.
Give you that motion, Mr. Mayor.
Okay. And you'll come back if there's an extension that's needed for this, for we're doing construction, so.
So right now, the first closure is, I think, 2 weeks, and the second closure is another 2 weeks. So we're expecting the two that are about 2 weeks in duration.
Okay, gotcha.
Sorry, did that answer the question? I didn't
Yeah,
quite-
it does.
Okay.
Yeah. So a motion on the floor, all in favor? Carried. Center Street rebuild, Kaylee.
All right, I'll give a quick background on this one. So this was obviously identified as an extension from the north section that has already been completed. The north section was completed during our flood projects, and it would take Center Street to remain 2 lanes with parallel parking and the improved pedestrian corridor. So the first portion was already completed in 2020, and we are now moving forward with phase 2. Purpose of this project obviously was to bring up our standards. Phase 1 being utility relocation, which is similar to how we did the north phase, and phase 2 being the actual underground and utilities. This project was to be funded by the MSI grant. And you'll notice I've broken down within the financial areas kind of how we got to our costs and our budget approvals and such between our 2023 costs and our 2024, or 2023 estimates and our 2024 identified costs. Obviously, with the approval with the Quags expansion, the MSI grants being used in that location, this project will need to roll back and be delayed. That does mean that costs kind of end. It does mean we will need to investigate how some of our fully executed contracts that are already in place, how they either become delayed or they are canceled and brought forward in the future for when the project kicks up again. The conversation was it would be discussed during 2026 budget, which means we would start seeing construction 2027 utilities, 2028 for road construction, or alternatively, we could try to build them both in the same year. I'd be more than happy to answer any questions if there are any questions.
Thanks, Kaylee. So this isn't abandoning this project, it's just pushing it out a little bit because of the higher priority that we just approved, being the aquatics facility expansion. So this is an important project to finish off the south end of Center Street. So, but we do have a higher priority on our list that we need to take care of first. So. Any other questions, comments? I'll ask for a motion from Councillor Jones that council not proceed with the proposed Center Street improvements, shallow utilities project, and that council defer this project to the 2026 budget.
I'll give you that motion, Mayor Snodgrass.
Okay, all in favor? Carried. Thanks, Kaylee. Any council reports? Any board and committee reports? Any public comments from the public that isn't here, other than people that are not from here? You're good with it regardless. Thanks. Council correspondence requiring action. So I sent this letter to from Dr. Fay to council, and we're heading into a bad position here with this funding model that the provincial government is doing with the doctors in this province, and it's not looking good at all when you look at 12 doctors in Charles Clark, and only 10 of them received the additional operational funding. And you know, Dr. Weiss and Dr. Fay are both trying to work with the provincial government, and Minister LaGrange and Premier Smith, but they're not getting very far with it at all. In fact, they're struggling just to get a meeting with the minister. But this isn't just High River. I think it was Hinton that I proposed that I shared the article with, that Hinton's in one hell of a mess. Down at Pincher Creek, they're in as big a mess. But what's happening is the doctors are leaving their practices because of the limited funding they get to be able to operate their practices. So what they're doing is they're leaving their practices and they're just taking on some hospital shifts and just doing it that way rather than trying to run their own business being their practice. So, I don't get, but Premier Smith's plan is to replace doctors with nurse practitioners, and in my mind, it's a ludicrous idea because they're two different skill sets. A nurse practitioner cannot prescribe and do everything that a physician can. They're not interchangeable at all. So to think that, and nor do we have enough nurse practitioners to fill in the voids. So we're getting our community in a hell of a position. And just to make note of one physician in High River that's looking at shutting her practice down, not looking at it, she's going to, because the government is still saying no to her additional funding. She shuts down, that is immediately 700 people that lose their doctor in High River alone. One doctor. And you got 10 out of 12 in Charles Clark alone, only that one. There's multiple medical centers, facilities in High River, doctors' facilities. Highwood downtown, Pinnacle, go through the list. One is 700, and that's probably below average patient load of most of these doctors, of our full-time doctors. So we're in a hell of a position here. So I'm not looking for any direction. I'm still talking with Dr. Vise and Dr. Fay as to kind of where we fit into it in the advocacy piece of it. So, I don't want to harm anything that they're doing. But this is a huge, huge thing for High River, is that if we start losing our doctors, we're in one hell of a mess. So just wanted to put it out there so that council was aware of what's going on and so that the public's aware of what's going on. It's actually been fairly quiet up until this point while the doctors try to work with our own MLA. Chelsea Petrovic is the parliamentary secretary to our Minister of Health, Adriana LaGrange. So the doctors have met with her, and that's where they're trying to get a meeting with the minister. So hopefully that'll happen sooner than later, and has to happen immediately in my mind. But the Premier also is very aware of where this is headed. But what the decision is for going forward is of great concern to me. So just on the table for information, no action needed at this time, but I'll just keep updating you as I have in the past. Council correspondence for information, correspondence from the High River District Healthcare Foundation. And if there's nothing else, I'll ask for a motion from Councillor Kinghorn that council recess the regular council meeting July 8th, 2024 at 4:14 p.m.
You have my motion, Mayor Snodgrass?
Thank you. All in favor? Carried. Who do we need? Staff and council? I'll ask for a motion from Councillor Walsh that the regular council meeting move out of the closed meeting July 8th at 4:21 PM.
I'll give you my motion, Mr. Mayor.
Okay. All in favor? Carried. And I'll ask for a motion from Councillor Smith. Where are we here? Hang on 2 seconds. Keeners. You guys should move here. Okay, so I'll ask for a motion from Councillor Smith that council allow the Edie family to farm the property provided he enters into a typical farming lease with the town of High River for the 2025-2026 seasons at a rate of $107 per acre per year for the lease.
I'll give you that motion, Mr. Mayor.
All in favor? Carried. Meeting adjourned 4:23.